Several people responded to my older video about overpowered characters, saying that it was okay because I clarified that something I was commenting on was about old King Godverse, not the modern one. And like, is it not okay for me to criticize modern King Godverse? If so, then too bad, I'm doing it anyway, because modern King Godverse sucks as well. No overpowered character will hide from me. Anyway, let's get started. After I scroll past these literal pages of backstory though, yes, this is literally how much backstory King Godverse has. It's still going. It's all just some meta crap about how he's supposedly better than the old King Godverse anyway. Let's get started not in the power section, but in the appearance section, since there's plenty of stuff to complain about in the profile as well. First of all, why is this called an Azrael appearance instead of a boss monster appearance? All the things I can think of connecting this to Azrael are just normal boss monster appearance stuff. Also, this formal events thing makes it look like he's just a normal part of pan-Western society, which is a little weird for a multiversal god. There's also the fact that he usually physically manifests at all, which, like, I don't think I consider it advantageous or disadvantageous, though really it depends on the way the relevant abilities work. I just find it a little weird. But of course, we're not done yet, since because this is an overpowered character, it obviously needs to be a Sans as well. Like, the only reason this appearance exists is Legacy King Godverse. Also, how is the Sans form simple as opposed to a boss monster? I've been modeling some Undertale monster types for my Roblox game, and I found the boss monsters way easier to model, although that may just be me. Also, why does he have a form for relaxation? Shouldn't not taking a form at all be the lowest energy state? Also, both sides of his body are decorative in nature. You think? He doesn't have an inherent form at all. Any body is going to be decorative. Anyway, now it's time to get into the actual abilities. Wow, this ability barely fits on my screen. There's a lot to unpack here. What there's also a lot of is background noise from my mic, which there wasn't before. And straight off the bat, it seems like King Godverse still hasn't figured out how ridiculous these long lists look. At least there's nothing like the Granddaddy LA from before. Finally, we get an actual definition for one of the terms used in these abilities, even if said definition doesn't really have any actual content. Like, ah yes, a concept is an idea. It's not like I knew that before. The third section of this ability is what I like to call anti-TBGF measures, which is when a character basically tries to dodge criticism by including clauses like this in their abilities. Of course, that obviously doesn't work because this video will continue regardless of it. And of course, the last part is just hyper-real. It's the my number is your number plus 1 of power scaling, which of course indicates a very power scaling oriented view on this character. Anyway, next ability. There's a weird assumption a lot of these abilities make from various characters, that just because a universe is fictional in the real world means that it necessarily follows some sort of narrative as the core element of its cosmology. This can be seen here in this ability. Sort of reminds me of a friend with a particular interest in tuber vegetables and certain kinds of birds. It's always funny when I see these kinds of assumptions because they create these obvious weaknesses that the creator just doesn't account for. Eater. It's like Keter, but with an A. Anyway, there's a bunch of weird jargon here, along with the authority thing, which I see a lot. Like, why is this character's position in a social construct being listed with all these inherent abilities? Unless this authority isn't a social construct, in which case it shouldn't be called authority. Firstly, define magic. Magic is like an intentionally vague word, so you can pretty much just justify whatever bullshit with this ability, saying it's magic. Wait. Does this ability literally just say he has plot armor? I think that's literally what it says. Also, that impossible is feeling lonely. Maybe an otherwise could be its friend? This is just Lato presence, but why define it in such a weird way relating to narrative and continuation of any event? Found the polychism at least, along with the other polychism from before. Okay, there's a weird semantic oddity I'd like to go over with this only omnipotence thing. If omnipotence is treated as the set of all possible abilities, then all ability sets can be treated as subsets of omnipotence. You can then take as a definition or describe as a postulate that any subset of omnipotence constitutes a valid ability set. While that is a little bit of a jump, I'd assume it's a reasonable assumption to make. From that assumption, it follows that the ability set containing only the ability to override KGV's Lato presence is a valid set of abilities for a character. And this ability set is not omnipotent, and while nigh-omnipotence is poorly defined, we can reasonably conclude that it is not nigh-omnipotent either. I believe what's going on with this ability is the general abstraction of different tiers of abilities, which is also the explanation I've brought up before for why it's so rare to see polychism explicitly stated. Here we get to the whole self-hindered power set weirdness, which, like, is fine, but for omniscience it's a little weird. I guess because they didn't know how to handle omniscience while also making it an actual character. The answer to that question is, don't use omniscience. This is almost as gibberish as old King Godverse. It's even got the weird I have authority over all of fiction crap. Not much else to say here. Moving on. Here's the last ability that's actually called an ability and not a skill. Self-awareness. People make this out to be a really big deal when it's really not. Especially for an Undertale AU. At least he isn't driven insane by it like Infinity Code is. Now, since King Godverse is technically still as stands, he has bones and blasters. Let's get started with those. Okay, this is just a bunch of hyper-real power scaling gibberish. Infinitely beyond instant speeds. Lol. Also, that's a nice hefty LA there. Maybe the bones will be somewhat better. Wait, does this look familiar to you? Yep, that's right. The author just copied the same ability, Control-F replaced blasters with bones, and called it a new ability. And also, Lamau, fictional verse. Hey, at least it's another one to add to the collection. Anyway, that's the abilities done, and with that, everything I have comments on. Goodbye!